Me too. They couldn't help me either. No, everything's up on me. We'll be here a little while.
All right, if you like that, maybe
Huh? Y'all, if we want to go ahead and get started, we have a quorum. So.
yeah, they got microphones. All right, I'm gonna call to order the Town of Somerville Design Review Board meeting for March 27th, 2025. Just remember to turn off your cell phones or silence them, please. If you come to the podium and present, make sure you introduce yourself your name, state your role in the project. First order of business is approval of the February 27th, 2025 meeting minutes. Their motion for approval.
Motion for approval.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have one more member coming. He's stuck in traffic. So under old business, 4470 Ladson Road, revisions to previously approved express oil change.
Okay, for the staff report, DRB granted final approval for this project in September of 2024. Changes to the plans were verified upon receipt of a building permit submittal. The architect has provided a change narrative to detail the proposed plan changes. At this time, staff does not have any additional comments, as it appears nothing with the site design has changed and there are no zoning compliance items of note. Do we have someone with express oil change here to present? No,
Can we move that to a little bit later?
of course.
Move that.
So next up, and we have our folks zooming in for this one. So this is for the Sawmill Village Shopping Center. So it is an additional storefront being added on the back side of the existing Sawmill Village Shopping Center. I have given y'all a handout with the most recent TRC meeting comments from Tuesday of this week. So if you could take a look at those while we're reviewing, just so you're aware of the most recent comments. The applicant has provided an updated storefront elevation reflecting the incorporation of brick veneer. You'll remember that that was discussed at the previous meeting when this first came before you. And in my staff report, I just went over about, referring to the TRC comments and some of staff's concerns. But if the board does feel comfortable issuing final approval at this time for the facade renovations itself, staff would recommend conditioning the approval to require all TRC comments be addressed prior to building permit approval. And with that, I'll hand it over to Brian.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. My name is Brian Cheek and I'm with Corey Corporation. We're based out of Greensboro, North Carolina, so thanks again for letting us handle this remote. We took the considerations and the feedback that you gave us last round and tried to incorporate those as best as possible. The main two that I remember were bringing some of the brick element from the front into the back. And so what we've done is created some brick columns, and those are to match the existing. That's how the front looks with the brick columns and then the ephes details in between. We talked about the shutters. Some folks liked them, some folks didn't, but we left them on just in case. We can go either way, whether you want that. It's just an element that we were tying in from the front. I don't think our team cares, like I said, either way. So we'll lean on you to give us some direction on that. There was some talk about some landscaping in the front, so we've removed some asphalt in the front and added some landscaping. We updated the canopy. The tenant in the last review wanted a portico. That tenant went away, and so we've just gone with a simple canopy roof over the storefront, and that's basically the majority of the changes. If you go to the site plan, we had some comments from TRC to add this is not the latest.
Yeah, this was what was in the submittal. I know the TRC package had an updated one, which showed, I believe, the access over here.
Yeah. So what we did is the striped line, we had hugging the building, and what we did is we took it to the top of the parking lot. And so what that does is it avoids crossing over any loading areas. And then we're tying into the existing sidewalk that the breezeway in between the two buildings. So that's really, and then we had some dumpster locations north of the 10 count parking right in front of the space, and we've got that screened with a brick surround, so the dumpsters are screened. And then as far as the parking, we ran a calculation, and the existing parking is as is 4 per 1,000. And so we're not adding any square footage. We are changing uses. The front 3 spaces aren't changing uses per se, but the back space, we're looking at a fitness center. And so that does have a little bit more parking requirements. But what we've done is we've met all the parking requirements that we need for that backspace in the back. So folks aren't needing to park in the front and then walk to the back. So what we've done is we've added parking and taken away square footage that would be parked in the front. So that was our way of trying to not make the parking any worse, but improve it.
Anything else?
I think that's it. Open for questions.
Alrighty, so you're requesting final. I don't think that's doable because we're missing a lot of information. There's not a landscaping plan. This is the only site plan that was included. But did you say the hatched area is all going to be removed and landscaping will be put in there? Or is it just striped?
There's existing landscaping around the perimeter of the parking. And so we're not touching that. We're just adding some landscaping right in front of the building, at the entrance of the new grayed out area that we're accessing from the back.
So Chris, if you look at the TRC comments, we did let them know that they needed to verify existing landscaping, because on the back here, there is some existing landscaping that could be verified at a staff level, but which is why I put in the staff report if DRB was comfortable with approving the facade renovations, they could condition that would be resolved before any building permits would be issued, but that would be up to the board. And I am going to pull up the most recent site plan, which shows the striping for y'all.
Thank you.
It'll just take me a second.
Like, would this be considered a front?
Yeah,
This
which
is
is
the front of the building, so it has to meet front buffer requirements.
There are various easements that are already in place adjacent to or running parallel with the sawmill. So obviously we would have to verify those, but we are aware that they probably wouldn't be able to meet those buffer requirements. But we just have to verify what's there because I think you can see in this picture,
good.
there is some existing landscaping here. But we have to verify that and the applicant will have to provide a
I
plan.
think they need to meet the landscaping requirements for parking lots.
Yeah.
Which would
Yeah.
be landscaping
Between the
in the islands at the end of the parking bays and that sort of thing. Because this has now become the front with the new parkway in use.
Right, and this is highly visible from Berlin Myers. I was actually on there
It's got to look
looking
a
at it
little better
yesterday.
than this.
Just
yeah.
got,
Mm.
over time, this could read as the front of the shopping center. So I think there needs to be
It's never going to look like a front of a shopping
be
center.
more,
It's
excuse
it's
me,
the
Brian,
back.
excuse me. There needs to be more thought to the foundation planting along the front of the building. And probably more area than what is shown. It needs to really look like an enhanced building because potentially over time, this is a new front for the shopping center. And I think the board needs to consider kind of this overall context related to parking, landscaping, the facade elevations, all of it. But
Well, it gets to a certain point where we're just going to put a door and not go through DRB. We're trying to do the right thing, and it's just becoming such a difficult process. All we're trying to do is enhance the back of this building. And it seems like all we're being met with is difficulty doing that. Now, if there's certain items that we need to do to follow the UDO, like put landscaping in for parking, we're totally fine with following the rules, but all we're trying to do is enhance this space. And so it's never going to be a front of this building. There's loading docks, there's dumpsters. This is always going to be the back of house of a big retail center. So, I think it's a little absurd to think that we're going to go in here and make the entire back of this back of house building look like the front. All we're trying to do is move in the right direction, though. And it seems like this being very met with opposition, which is very surprising to our team. And it's just hard for me to relay to them how difficult it is to get something like this approved. So that's kind of our stance.
But you're in a town that has very high standards, and this is a very highly traveled road. If you
Well, so you could argue that
completely
it's not
understand.
it's not helping, because at a certain point we're just going to leave it as is and put a door. And so that's not what everyone wants.
Understood. Absolutely.
So, it gets to, there's a threshold where it makes sense for us to do this, and we're right there.
We're going to move on to architecture.
I guess there was no comments on that.
One of the comments I have as far as architecture is concerned is that what you're proposing is not consistent with the existing architecture that exists. There's a lack of detail,
Can you be more
lack
specific?
of towers, lack of finishes. So
Can
that would be our position as far as, or my position as far as any kind of thoughts on the architecture of what you're trying to do. And I look at this
it would be
building
nice to have
holistically,
some.
not just as a little tenant storefront. I don't know if a tenant storefront needs to go in front of the DBR, but since it's in front of the DBR, we're looking at this holistically as a building, as a public face of the building, as a representative of Somerville, as you cross over Berlin Myers. So, we just want to make sure that this is indicative of the character that we've been charged with in formulating for Somerville.
Okay.
We're going to let the
Any
board members
specific
speak.
kind
Ryan,
of
you'll have an
comments?
opportunity to speak after the board members have spoken.
Yeah.
Bill, do you have any comments?
Well, it's very vague, the comments.
It needs to be upgraded. I've been looking at this project since 1973, when it was first introduced. And it's come a long way since 1973. It needs to get up to 2025 and the new parkway standards, because the back of the building is now the front. And we're not asking a lot. It's very minor, and you're going to make more money off of this. It's not unreasonable that you would spend some more money to get a tenant in there.
It's not about, we're not making more
I'm going to
money.
let the board members speak. Jan, do you have any comments?
My comment is if you could somehow show us a little bit better plan of where there will be some landscaping to soften the massiveness of the building.
You look at the red.
Will there be signage any other place except the one signage that you've indicated? And can you lay the parking lot out, meeting the parking lot requirements for landscape? That would be very helpful, and I think it will help soften the entire look of the back of this building.
All right. Any other comments?
Don't really have too many comments on the architecture, more of an observation, I guess. Are we, or question, are they beholden to upfitting the entire facade because of one singular addition, renovation?
No. So what triggers them having to come before y'all is that they are renovating 50% or more of a street facing facade.
Which, if you look at the overall elevation,
Ryan, I'll call on you in just a minute.
So is that percentage of I guess, the space that they are gonna inhabit, it's more than 50% of that, even though it's not more than 50% of the total.
Yes,
facade?
it was close, but they are, they're painting the entire back of the building. It's not just this area. And some of the landscaping requirements, I haven't really been able to determine if they're met or not, which was part of the TRC comment. So anytime they're not able to be met, DRB is the entity that can grant a variance to that.
Gotcha.
And I don't think we're asking them to enhance the entire rear elevation. It's just
Clean up that.
this elevation,
Right.
particularly the parking.
Mhm.
Look at the buffer in front of this section of the building. We're not asking them to renovate the entire thing. It's renovate this,
Focal point.
the focal point.
Yeah, I just wanted to
Right.
understand the scope of what we're asking and.
And we have to
that
understand the
clarify.
parking. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any comments on the architecture. It was more just curiosity of what we're looking at here.
Any other board comments? All right. Brian, what would you like to offer?
Okay, so you said that there was a comment that was very vague about how it didn't match the front. I would like for someone to give me a little bit of an example, because we're matching the brick columns. That's exactly how it's handled in the front. And then we're matching the ephes. That's exactly how it's handled in the front. And then we're painting it the same color as the front.
I can talk about, I made the comment.
We've got the
Um,
shutters like the front. Just curious, it would help me to.
Do you have a photograph of the existing frontage?
I'll pull up the street view.
And I had mentioned the detailing, not necessarily the materials, but it's the detailing.
Any kind of example on the detailing that you're talking about or referring to?
We're gonna pull up the photograph, of the existing.
Yeah.
Can you go toward the corner? Right. So you have the tower, which you could easily replicate. You have the detail on the ephes, the molding.
So
You have the
Can you-
roof
can you-
cornice
can you
above.
zoom in on the ephes detail? So I know what you're talking about. We're more than fine that our goal is to make it match the front. So that's the only reason I'm asking how it doesn't.
I think that would be good.
So the
if you
ephes
did,
detail,
but-
okay.
But the illustration in front of us does not. Architecture is details. So again, if you look at the details of what you did here, which is nice.
If you could just tell me what detail you're talking about in the ephes, you're just talking about the signage, what the band that goes around
The
the
mo-
signage.
Okay, the molding on the ephes.
So if you look at the render,
Essentially the frame around the sign, if indeed that is a frame around a sign. The cornice
our
above the ephes.
our goal was to match the cornice. If you go to the rendering,
But let me just go through.
okay, so you said the cornice, okay.
You can see the brickwork. You can see the sconces on the brick. The depth of the ephes is not just a flat plane that goes all the way to the ground. I'm not expecting a recessed storefront, but certainly a horizontal molding. I think the tower is important to anchor, whether it's the entrance or whether it's the corner of the building, to tell the public that there is something around the corner. And so therefore the detailing that you have on this corner tower with the glazing and the shutters and the brackets and the overhang and all those details.
So the corner, Are you talking about with the metal roof corner?
Are you able to see what that we're viewing right now?
Yes, well, I'm viewing it on mine. Yeah, so that corner, that's a corner. We don't have a corner on ours. Ours is a flat facade. So it,
I know, but this is an important icon in your development here, in your design. And what we're looking for is consistency in design and detail
okay.
that is already established today.
You've got me. I get where you're coming from with the sconces and the cornice. We're not being consistent if we take a corner detail and add it to a flat facade, though.
But this is also a main entrance detail.
It's
You know, if you look at Harris
it is in the
Teeter, if you
corners.
look at other,
I disagree. I don't see how that makes
well,
any
we're-
sense. Is this a
I'm
corner?
I'm not here to convince you. I'm here just to make some
Do you want us to take
comments.
the random corner and make that the facade? That's what you want?
We'll look at the Dollar Tree and the other.
Yeah, I mean,
facade.
Yeah, what
that
about
makes,
that continuation of the brick between the two columns?
So I think that, again, there's a lot of thought, a lot of detail, a lot of interest on the
So-
existing
one,
public side.
one thing to note with the structure of this building, because it is old, we're not able to add all of these towers, all of this brick. There's an existing wall that once you start manipulating it, it opens a whole nother can of worms for the entire building. And so that just becomes completely cost prohibitive for us to do. And so I don't know how else to explain that. But
To me, it looks like these elevations, if you like, Brian, are you seeing this street view that we're looking at right now?
yeah, well, can you? It's hard to see it from my.
Basically,
Just
what
tell
we're
me the
looking at,
dollar.
it almost looks like they like copy and pasted between those two columns at the end here. Yeah, right there. Yeah, but he didn't have the brick in between the two middle columns.
But that's.
Would that help, or is that not?
And I can get with structural to see if that's even a possibility to add more brick, but we're even having to use thin set brick as a veneer because of the weight of the real brick isn't even allowed from our structural engineer.
Brian, that doesn't make sense.
I mean, there's got to be some kind of like understanding of what we're up against and the threshold where we just leave it as is and don't paint the back and don't enhance the back. And I mean, we all we're trying to do is move in the right direction. And I understand that we want to make it match the front. We do too. And if you look at any of our properties, we don't sell our properties. We hold on to our properties. We're proud of our properties. We go the extra mile to make our properties look good. And so if you look at any of our developments across North Carolina, they all look very nice. And we care about that. Our CEO cares about that. Our design and construction team cares about that. And so, you know, we've been around for 70 years and that's how we've done it. And so all we're trying to do is make the back of this building look better because we know that the road is coming in. And that's why we started trying to enhance the back of this building, not because you required us to. And so it's just, sorry if I'm like displaying a level of frustration, but it's just, I just know if I take what these comments are back, building an entire tower to match the corner that's on a flat facade. If I take that back to our team, we're just going to slap a door back there and not do anything. And so I don't want that. You don't want that. I don't know really how to navigate this. This is the first time I've ever dealt with a design review board in Somerville, and it's a lesson learned for sure. And so any kind of comments on that would be helpful. Just knowing a little bit more where we're coming from. I don't know.
Right, thank you, Brian. The other things that for the board that from just reading staff comments is there needs to be the dumpster enclosure needs to be detailed. It needs to be screened, show the existing landscaping, the parking calculations. We talked about photometrics. At this point, I would, entertain a motion. He's asking for final approval.
I would deny final approval.
All right, is there a second for denying final approval?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Can I have one last comment?
I think the comment period is passed, but we will, grant you a quick comment.
Okay, thank you. Is it just the dumpster screens and the parking and the landscaping that's denying this, or is it the architecture?
Everything, the application.
The architecture. Okay, sounds good. All right. Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Yep. Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed at this point because I wanted to comment.
Okay,
Okay.
well, we'll, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. My
I missed it.
my comment still is, maybe this would look better to us if you could just address the parking area, put the parking guidelines in that you need to put some islands in the parking. That would soften everything. Get your dumpster, get that drawn up, show us your dumpster, show us your enclosure, show us the landscaping around that. I think that may move us more towards some flexibility on the building. So you would see a different look than we're seeing right now. We're just not seeing clearly that it's going to be beautiful because it's right now very stark. So
That's
if
how
you
it's
could
gonna
work
remain.
on that, we don't want to do, we just really would like you to come back and bring us a little bit better looking product.
If you guys can tell us exactly what you're looking for, we will spend our time to possibly resubmit. But at this point, I think you've kind of answered our question. So.
All right, let's call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion for denial, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you. Next item is 295 Midland Parkway, parking garage.
Okay, so this is coming before you for preliminary approval, review and approval. This previously went before TRC in November of this past year and conceptual DRB in January.
Come on, Tom.
Can't separate those two pieces. I just updated material.
So the applicant has been advised that a certified arborist must provide grand tree evaluation for review by the town arborist, as it appears the majority of the existing trees on the lower half of the site where there's proposed surface parking are proposed to be removed. Staff would suggest that the applicant consider designing their parking around what existing natural resources they are able to maintain. The proposed landscaping appears to meet standard requirements. However, it could be better enhanced by the preservation of existing trees where possible. Previously, at the last meeting, the board had requested that the applicant create inviting outdoor spaces. In response to this, the applicant has submitted a plan for a small park area just outside of the drop-off area for the medical center. The board had also previously requested that the architecture for the parking garage feature variation within the elevations to break up the design due to the size of the building. They have provided updated preliminary elevations to address this. The only other comments I had were in regards to required bicycle parking and sidewalk access from the surface parking lot to the existing sidewalk on Midland Parkway should be added to the proposed site plan prior to submitting for final review. And I'll hand it over to the applicant, and you can just tell me where to jump around in the presentation.
Okay, if you would, can you jump to the landscape plan? It looks like page 44.
Okay.
Assuming my PDFs are numbered the same way as yours. Perfect. Okay, we are planning, we have an arborist out there on site today. So hopefully by Monday, we have our arborist report. Obviously not here for today, but, and we will, do some redesign on this west side of the site, to accommodate as many existing trees as we can and are deemed,
Could I ask you to state your name and your role on the project?
Of course. I'm Rob Hamby. I'm the architect of record from Gresham Smith. Sorry about that. So as I was saying, we are finishing the arborist report up. And we will address in our final design, saving as many trees as we can save on that western property side. And we already have a plan to extend that sidewalk down to the road, plan south. We do have a sidewalk connection against the garage from the west campus or the west lot over to the hospital as well. I do have two things I'd like to just clarify and ask you guys some clarification on. One being the comment about 10% accessible parking. My understanding of the IBC in that section 1106 is that applies to outpatient facilities. This being an inpatient hospital, we would typically design to a 2% accessible parking rate because this is not a solely outpatient facility. And that's a pretty big difference in accessible parking, obviously. And the other one would be bicycle parking. Absolutely acknowledge that that is part of your local ordinance. I would question if we really expect 45 people to bike to the hospital. And if we could reduce that number down or remove that number. And that's my only two requests other than the comments you guys might have from the package.
Well, I think specifically on bicycle parking, to defer to Becca, but if you made a recommendation on, based on kind of industry standard and present that to staff, I think
Okay.
that is probably the way to do that. But I do think we need to hear, I think you need to present the buildings a little bit and the site
Okay.
and tell us why you did what you did.
Okay.
What was your design emphasis? You don't have to, it's not a 20-minute dissertation, but just kind of the big picture ideas of why you did what you did, both with the site and with the building.
Okay.
Right. Please.
We'll get back up to the beginning of my package here.
And I think it's worth also, while you're doing that, point out the pedestrian circulation, particularly from the big parking lot, and also go over your parking required versus parking provided, because I think the parking table is a little confusing. It looks like you're 500 over, but I don't think you are. So if you can just kind of package all that in, that'd be helpful.
Yes, absolutely. Give me a minute to find the right page here. Sorry. All right, if you would go to page 52. There we go. Perfect. All right, so backing up to the beginning here, the concept, obviously, I'm sure you guys have all recognized that there is a parking shortage. It's hard to find parking spot at Somerville Medical Center. And in anticipation of additional future growth, HCA wanted to go ahead and build a structure that would accommodate that additional growth in the future. So we are over what's required right now. The answer to that question is yes. And I hope to see you in the next year or two for something else. But short answer there is we analyzed the whole site, and this being the most central location for future expansion around in other parts of the site, and also far enough forward, planned south to stay out of the flood zone. That's kind of where we landed here. We wanted to have a direct visual connection from the garage over to the hospital main entrance. That's that blue circle there, kind of in the middle. Main entrance of the hospital is actually on the side. But so that gives a direct visual and automotive connection from the garage over to the hospital site there. If you go to the next page real quick. That is just some further more detailed analysis of the connection points and why we wanted to make those connection points, how we wanted to make that. Right now, that across that connection is all parking. So part of this would be to enhance that walk across there with a covered canopy and a garden, which is elsewhere in the packet. But I really wanted to make that a nice space between those two pedestrians. Moving two more slides down. During our concept review, one of the questions you guys had was, is this going to be visible from the site, from the road? And the answer to that is no. Maybe if all the trees are bare, you might catch a glimpse of it, but based on the scale there, and it's far enough back that it will not be very imposing from the road if it's visible.
I'm seeing slide 2, you're taking out all those trees.
No, this is from the hospital side.
Number 2, Midland at visitor entrance.
Yep, that's the road just west of the hospital,
Okay.
not
Yeah.
not the
Okay.
other.
Okay.
Hospital.
Right.
And really the concept of the materials and the concept of the exterior there is Somerville, Flower City in the Pines. And we wanted to take some of those textures. If you go to slide 57. We wanted to take some of those visuals and some of those textures and apply those to both the garden and the exterior facade of the building. Now, keep going to the next one. So conceptually, this is what we came up with, is what would be kind of the garden around the garage. Acknowledge that piece to the south of the garage is a little thin. We were just really close to the other adjacent property there, but this is what the garden space is going to look like between the garage and the main hospital. Much nicer pedestrians. We're going to have some benches in there, place somebody could come outside, just have a little retreat if they're stressed out from waiting on a family member. And we have placed new accessible parking there as well. Next slide there, you can see a few renderings of what that garden is going to feel like as you walk through. The next slide there. Sorry, back up one if you would. This is a visual from the garage, from the garden over to the garage a little bit, and we have other renderings so you can see the exterior of the garage better. And then that next.
But that planting doesn't match the plan.
It does not. We're kind of limited when we put plants in a rendering of what's available. But we can try to get that a little closer for the rendering if we need to.
Right.
What's on the landscape plan will be what is installed. All right, next slide. So this is a little bit of a comparison of how some of those material concepts get applied to the garage itself. And the next slide shows a little bit of that too. I do have the material sample board in here. The slide after this is really just some contextual photos from other places on the site, some of which are really old, some of which have been built over the last couple of years. And then that next slide, that's the materials that I've replaced with a new piece of paper in front of you guys now. So we're proposing to have two colors of concrete. The darker tan color really relates to a lot of the EFS colors on the hospital as it is now. That brick that would be used at the verticals, the elevators and garage, elevators and stairs at the garage is the same masonry that we've used elsewhere at the hospital. We have proposed to use a perforated metal panel that kind of creates that mottled shadowy plate thing like the photo up through the pines. And that's just at the main elevator bank. And the lighter precast is just to give it some contrast so that we're not just one big blob of yellow. Blob is definitely a technical term. But you can see representations of the actual patterns on that piece of paper I gave you. I could not get a precaster to give me actual samples form liners, but we chased down some imagery there. If you want to go to the next slide, Becca. And here we have a couple of finished renderings of that. So you can see that the vertical tower there, that's the main stair and elevator core. That's where the perforated panels are and the bulk of the brick. And we have two precast materials around the rest of the facade. Blew through that. What else would you like?
That's good. We'll talk about site in a minute, but I think it's worth going ahead and talking about discussing architecture. Peter, you want to get us started?
What is happening? What is happening on the right-hand side of this image where looks like the precast fluted pillars, and then is there an insert? Is there a gray insert? What is that
Gray is
line?
more perforated panel in that very middle piece of that. And that's
Not in between, but on top of the pilaster. What, there's a gray stripe down the middle of the pilaster.
yes,
What
that
is-
is a piece of metal on top of the pilaster.
And is this the only place it happens?
It is, and that is because that is the vehicular entrance to the garage itself. So we wanted to have an identification, a strong identification of where you actually drive into and out of the garage.
Do you have a street elevation of that entrance?
I don't, looking straight at it, I do not. Now, the next page down, it's an oblong rendering there, but
Okay.
you can kind of see it's in relationship to the rest.
And
of
is that the only entrance to the garage?
There is a back entrance on the opposite side, top of left corner, but that's just a secondary, so we did not highlight it like this.
And is the perforated panel just 50% perforated? Have you gone to that level to?
Yeah, it should be on that level. I can look up the actual perforation percentage. It looks to be a little over 50% just based on the sample that we've got.
And the reason for picking this perforated panel is,
I don't know that we had a real reason other than we like this perforated panel.
okay, it's fair enough. I think it looks good.
Alrighty, can we, can you suggest a site plan that we look at?
I sure can.
And did you say the arborist was there today with your team?
Not my team, but certified arborist
Was there? Okay.
is there. Let's go back up to the landscape plan, I think, sheet 44.
If you don't mind, I'm just gonna roll through some comments and then
Please.
we can talk about them. All right, staff already talked about saving existing trees. Looks like no trees were saved. We need to make an effort to do that. We'd prefer to break the parking lot into smaller rooms. So it doesn't look like 6 bays or whatever parking, maybe it's broken into 2 bays or 3 bays or something. Bring more trees into that, hopefully existing trees. So you could save these clusters, make it look more like, preference would be, it's more like a functioning bioswale. To add more shade to the parking lot. You mentioned, but I'm gonna say it, we need sidewalks from the parking garage down this, I'm gonna call this entry road to Midland. I think it'd be best to have them on both sides of the road. I think after I'm done, we'll talk to staff about, you've got, say it's 500 extra spaces. We don't typically allow you to clear more than you need. So we'd have to talk about that in a second. I think along this main road, it's just parking bay, 5 or 6 parking bays. I think it would look much better if you treated that drive aisle as a street. So that there's street trees on both sides with sidewalks on both sides. So it's a somewhat enjoyable walk to go from the parking garage to Midland Parkway, whether that's staff taking a break, staff walking to work, patients potentially walking there for, rehab or something. But instead of walking through a parking lot, walk down a sidewalk. And I think you can achieve that by potentially rotating the parking 90 degrees, that entire lot, maybe, I don't know, that's for you to look at. But that interconnectivity is very important, both internal and to your surroundings. On the upper left of this parking lot, it's got the 2 vertical bays. The buffer is it's on the left side as I'm facing the plan. It's on the left side. You can move that all the way to the right. So there's much larger buffer between the parking lot and the parking garage, and it'll give a more pleasant experience for visitors and staff to walk through. Typically we see 2 trees per island in the parking lot. I think if you broke it into bays, that could be, like I said, those kind of 2 to 3 bays. You can have a strip, maybe it's 5, 10, 20 feet wide, whatever it is that you could vegetate. I think the foundation planting along the building is minimal, particularly this east or left to right road. I think the may study if that can be shifted a little bit. Maybe it needs to shift north because it looks like it's only 5 feet and you have a sidewalk right on the road. Maybe the sidewalk needs to shift south of that horizontal road, and that's your big pedestrian connection. But along the building, you just gained another 5 feet for landscaping, because I think we really need to break up that facade. I think the renderings for the landscaping looked really good. As we talked about, that's not what this looks like. So that needs to be enhanced and needs to match. Quite frankly, the plan needs to look more like the rendering than the rendering does the plan. That's my suggestion. think that was most of my comments, but Becca, did you have a comment on if we can go over that much in parking?
So I would think that most likely some of the trees on site that are proposed as being removed are grand trees and probably in good health. So it would most likely have to go to tree protection board either way. I do feel that the tree protection board would want some assurance of future planning and understanding what the facility needed to accommodate that. To evaluate whether they're comfortable with losing some of those larger trees with a project that's upcoming. I don't think there's anything specific in our ordinance that spells that out. But I do believe that both the arborist and the tree protection board would not be comfortable with losing those trees.
Historically, we don't let them, if this was a target, we wouldn't let them have 500 more.
Right, they
trees.
wouldn't even get to that point
Yeah.
of site disturbance for an area if it wasn't something they were comfortable with
Right.
losing.
And on one of the renderings, you had a building, I think, you had a building in the middle of this parking lot. So that may be kind of a future thing, but
That is part of the long-term
sure.
growth plan. Sure.
All right. Had a lot of comments. Sorry about that.
No, you're,
Any other site comments starting down here?
none of those scared me.
Wait, I'm not done.
Scary, yes. Nathan?
I don't have anything. Chris went to town on it, so.
Chris, I think your comments were excellent. I know we really haven't discussed the building itself, but my first impression is, oh my gosh. But the more I looked at it, I thought, I think it might blend in with the rest of everything else quite nicely. So
Bill?
No comments.
I have some additional architectural comments on the building.
Okay.
So I'm a big proponent of what does this look like at night? And so, this is just preliminary submittal, right? So you're coming back.
Yeah, we'll be back with the final.
So I think if you can indicate some illumination.
Okay.
And now that I understand the reason for the perforated metal on top of the pilasters at the entrance, perhaps you could backlight the perforated metal with some soft illumination to make it again stand out at night.
And I think to kind of put a bow on my comments, I think you did a great job designing the building. The site was not designed, does not appear to have been designed with the same thought and design considerations that the architecture has and shows. That's what we're just looking for, consistency and elevating that design.
I will say the thought about moving the garage plan north, we definitely looked at that. And it throws off access and parking in the existing lot and pushes us into the line of that floodplain, which we really want to stay out of. So that's the only reason we're really tied up against that drive. But we'll look at maybe getting the sidewalk on the south side of that drive.
And also, again, to go back to the night experience. What is the public experience if they happen to park in that remote lot and they have to walk to the hospital at 2 a.m.? What is their experience?
Yeah, it's that I know we said this at the last time, it's that pedestrian experience so that it's as pleasant as possible.
Day and night.
Day and night.
Sure.
Yep.
And they would definitely be putting staff there. Obviously, we don't want patients and visitors to have to walk that mile.
Yeah.
Not a mile, but that's a long way to walk to the hospital. And like you mentioned, Chris, long-term, there'd be potentially a building there and that parking would be for that building.
Understood.
But yeah, we can work on that pedestrian connection there.
Thank you so much. I think you're tracking correctly. If y'all are okay with it, I'll make the motion.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so I would make a motion for preliminary approval with considerations of all the comments we made. And I know you're taking good notes and staff can probably fill in some of those too, if they're really missed.
Yeah, I don't take notes very well when I'm talking to, but I'm sure between the two of us. I would like to actually circle back around to the bicycle parking and the um bicycle parking and the ADA parking. You said on the bicycle parking,
Just check with
Uh,
staff on that.
just,
So,
Looked into industry standard
okay,
and then provide
So-
that to staff.
yeah, we may be able to look at an administrative adjustment for bicycle parking.
Okay.
I will look into see if DRB could even grant a reduction to that or if it would be BZA. But obviously, if we can do it at a staff level with some documentation that it is feasible, we can look at it that way. As far as ADA, that's going to be building code. So you would need to get in touch with the building official on that.
okay. And could that just be part of our final submission conversation for a permit, or do we need to do that preliminarily?
I mean, it would be great if you had addressed it before you come back for final and I can get you in touch with the appropriate staff person to talk to about that.
Okay. Should be easy enough.
All right, we had a motion for preliminary approval with conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Good to see you. Yeah.
All right. So with that, we will move on to our next item, which is the flood airs property development. So previously, this project came before y'all for conceptual last month. I'll go over some of my staff comments. Any of the TRC comments you see here, the applicant will need to provide if there's any update on any of those items of note. It's not absolutely necessary, but if you have any news on any of those engineering items with SCDOT, the traffic impact analysis, wetland stuff, if y'all would share those with us in your presentation, that would be appreciated. I know that the applicant has been working diligently with our planning director and our arborist on what trees they can save. You'll see that in the updated site plan. And then just to go over the comments from conceptual quickly, I just went over that one. The applicant has modified the site plan and it has included examples of potential features for their proposed pond area. DRB wanted them to look at reworking the location of the pond and making it an amenity feature for the development. Y'all had also asked them to restudy the parking and traffic flow around the entrance, especially in relation to the amenity center and daycare facility. The applicant again has modified the site plan, relocating the amenity center further away from the main entry point and daycare facility. The applicant will need to advise on the drop-off suggestion. You had asked for all parking areas and walkways to be shown. The applicant has updated their site plan to reflect that. Y'all had asked them to revisit layout and density in relation to green space, sidewalk and trails and the landscape buffers. I'll let the applicant advise on the changes they have made for that. Updated renderings have been provided to include vertical handrails, updated garage doors, and some different color and architectural features to distinguish the buildings from each other. And I believe the commercial building will be coming before you at a later date. And with that, I'll hand it over to the applicant and y'all just let me know where you would like me to jump around in the presentation.
Thank you. Hello again, Chris Ackerman. Just wanted to kind of come back before you and explain a little bit on the site plan revisions. Just a little background. We've changed this since our last meeting twice. We actually met with staff. We looked into relocating the entrance completely and doing a roundabout around the 43-inch live oak. Unfortunately, the commercial component is not does not work, and therefore one of the responses that we got from them, which was also y'all's concerned about a drop-off lane, we addressed that by the daycare does not allow vehicle drop-off. They actually have to come in and escorted by their parent or guardian, checked in and checked out. We did the other suggestion of trying to take the entire road, as you can see, around that 43-inch live oak. We actually also moved the entire amenity and reduced the pond size like we had, talked about. We also stepped down the architectural to for each building to help with the grading component. We, as we discussed, we turned on the trails and which I apologize again for that not being on last time, but we showed the trails and we added some additional parking. We have worked with the again with staff. I know that there were two clusters that were being considered after Justin had gone on site. The cluster that is on the bottom to that cluster, of course, and then right north of that to the left of those, that cluster on the left side of the parking. There was like 2 Cs and a D, if I recall. Those he would allow to be removed. The other cluster that we were looking at, we got verification from the arborist that those clusters, it was where the 4P, the fourplex building is located, were some loblolly pines. There was, I think, 3 or 4, not sure where the exhibit is, but in, discussing and trying to work around what's already been, what we previously had at the very first initial to now, the client, and please speak freely on this one, in order to provide those additional fourplex building, more than willing to, double the mitigation for the trees in that area, in order to, like I said, those were the loblolly pines. Let's see. We added, so with the amenity, they're looking at we added the addition of the pickleball court as well as the pool to the opposite side. Again, making the entire site very pedestrian friendly. As far as the buffers, it was a comment about extending or widening the buffers. To the south is a Limehouse Village, which is a PUD. They've got 20-foot buffers on their property. With the addition of our 15, plus they've got that existing pond and the existing buffering on that side. We felt that we're meeting the requirements of the urban corridor mixed use. We did do a 20-foot along the front, which is where the Burlington Myers connection is. We also tied in the sidewalks. I think that was a comment that somebody mentioned about ensuring that it was very pedestrian friendly to the improvements that are being done there. So the sidewalks have been connected to what's being proposed. I'm trying to remember what other comments you had. I think, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. So the other question was in regard to the green space. Could you please pull up that color, two-dimensional color rendering, please? Perfect. Thank you. So in looking at that, in regards to the urban corridor mixed use requirements for anything greater than 5 acres, the comment was 2% or greater of improved open space. So with the proposed dog park area and the pickleball and the pool alone, we were right around the 6% of it being improved. That does not include the commercial components playground area. Just wanted to kind of focus on, the improvements around that amenitized pond. The total quote unquote pervious area for the entire site is close to 39%. So we've, again, I think that we've reduced the width for between the parking. and also included additional parking in areas that, to make sure that we had adequate overflow. Of course, the garages, while not ideal, have two spaces, one for internal of the garage and one stacked in front of the driveway, on the driveway. And I think both of those unit counts are on the overall site plan. There are some, what you will also see is we had the arborist go out and verify the canopies. Unfortunately, the very large 70, to the top, yeah, you can see there, that 70, there's unfortunately, SC&G or Dominion went through there and just cut down the entire right side of that canopy. So we continue to leave space, obviously, for future growth, but that is truly the canopy as the arborist has provided. I believe I've addressed all of the previous comments that y'all had in regarding to the site plan. Is there
The arborist did want me to point out that, just because it's a little hard to see in yellow here, I believe, I can't read the species, but this is a very large.
It's a C grade red oak, is that correct?
That is beautiful and will remain. So I just he wanted me to point that out because it's a little hard for y'all to see with the yellow.
Yep. And when Justin went out there, he made a note of that. So we made sure that we kept the building pushed away from that. So.
I have a simple comment. We talked about last time about pond number 2 being a focal point and an amenity. And I guess you mentioned that you've improved it. And just based upon this drawing, it looks like I can't see the improvement on the pond. Certainly I see the pool, I see the pickleball. It seems like you're creating a very narrow, portion for water. So what other improvements are we not seeing?
Okay, so on the southern, there's pond 3 is the pond that we tried to amenitize as well. So you've already got the area that is around the amenity as a focal point. We also added a retained wall on the southern, was that pond? Was that pond 3? Pond 3.
So pond 2,
So
you really didn't do anything
Well, it was.
except for add the pool and the pickleball.
It's a smaller pond than
It's
it
not
was.
small.
it's half the size that it was previously.
Engineered entirely.
Right.
The goal of what, not to speak over
Yeah,
Chris, but the goal of trying to maintain water throughout was so that all those units in the interior had a view of water. And the picture that you had up before was kind of the thought that if we put some fountains in the corner and along the bigger part of it, that it would be more of a visual feature. Whereas if it was just cut off, we could reduce it and try to make that just green space. But that it would reduce the visibility of a water feature.
But that pond in its narrowest point looks like it's about 30 feet wide, right?
From the water surface to water surface.
And what's the elevation change from top of bank to water surface?
It is 5
Approximately.
feet, I believe.
They're probably not going to see it.
So it just seems it's a very major focal point in your plan. And to allow it to be what you're showing, I don't think you're gaining a focal point. Have you considered underground or more pervious, surface so that you can just get rid of that pond or at least this long leg and give more parkland to your residents? Especially that long leg, that just kills a lot of area.
Okay, we'll take a look at it. Again, meeting the requirements of the code, we've already tripled the area that is required. went and looked at a couple other areas that are within the same corridor. And eventually along this area, a lot of these, going to be, other than the Limehouse Village, you're going to start seeing more of a, I don't want to say trolley road, but I would believe you would want this to be more of a walkable site all the way through, correct? So I think at the end of the day, everything that we're focusing on has kind of exceeded that code. But we'll definitely take a look at it and see if there's.
Yeah,
I think if there's a way to get rid of that finger and gain back usable land for your residents.
The finger's still 30 feet wide, that's plenty wide,
Yeah.
30 feet.
Water, top of pond is
Yeah.
obviously.
But it's not usable
Usable from the sense.
from a recreation sense, from an enjoyment sense.
You can
Yeah.
look at it.
It's
that's
about,
all.
I just wasn't sure, yeah, visually, we're looking at that appeal, but look, I'm all for more free space. If we can get more space back to offer an amenity to our tenants and people that'll be using that community, I'm all for it. We have to fit within the engineering criteria.
Absolutely.
There, and that's why we felt that the amount that we were delivering was sufficient. If we can look at it and it's cost effective enough to be able to put that underground, we'll look at it. That's great. There's more space for us. We'd love it.
I would say, I think the biggest concern I have from a planning standpoint is the lack of open space. I know there's a sort of math exercise of, oh, we got this percentage, that percentage, whatever. But really, if you look at this apartment complex compared to others that are being built in the region, the open space is much more developed. Yeah, it's got, I mean, if you look at some of the stuff in Nexton or, all over the Charleston region, this has fewer amenities, fewer detailed open spaces than what I'm used to seeing on other multifamily projects. That's my biggest concern. And I can provide examples, but there's just, I mean, I know you have a pool, pickleball. The pool's actually very small. It seems like it's maybe 20 by 40, maybe. It seems small to me, but I think there's just a more robust amenity package that I think the market dictates that that's what people want. That's what I'm seeing
Yeah.
in the region. My 2 cents.
To that, I mean, since meeting with you last, we took all of your comments and internalized them. If there's something specific that you guys would like to see in addition to the pool, the dog run park, which is fairly sizable, I think we can all acknowledge that, which is a highly in demand amenity in communities today that we've built and also see around. We've added that pickleball court, which has room around it as well. The pool is a standard size that we've used at other clubhouses and other communities. To the extent that could be made bigger, I think that's a conversation we could look at, but it wasn't for the intent of making it smaller. It was just an amenity that we've used. But I've quite familiar with some of the other projects. We look at it as part of a market study. I was in Nexton this morning, and I can't. That was not the comment I was expecting in terms of amount of what we have compared to code and amount to what we'd like to give our residents. So if I could be honest about that, it wasn't. I don't think we're too far off unless there's something specific that you guys would like us to try to add from an amenity perspective that isn't here. But usually you'll see a playground of sorts, some sort of outdoor play area for young children. We could definitely look to add that. Obviously, having the daycare takes up a large playground area. But other than that, if you were to lay out the list, this is pretty well amenitized from what we've seen in the marketplace.
Well, your wetlands takes up a huge amount over there.
That's a fair point too, and that's part of our, that's part of how we wanted to accentuate that back pond, because that feeds, that runs right along the wetlands, otherwise perfectly usable space. But
I
that was like.
I see you created these internal pedestrian pathways, which are great. But the street elevation and the streetscape, it's essentially the same. And I think there's a rendering of what it is, basically all these parking spaces along, whatever length that is, 1,000 feet. And is there intention of landscaping in between, some little park, not a park, but at least breaking up this long row of gravel parking?
Great question. We actually have some pictures of that, in other communities we built of similar layout. And that was part of what was changed here. And sorry if I'm again to speak over it, but to speak more specifically to other stuff we built, we clarified that in this and separated it by a green belt.
Let's look at it.
Yeah, with the green belt down the middle. of
Let's
those
see it.
spots.
We worn this one out. Let's see it.
So that's, and Jamie could speak to the elevations, but those weren't ones that we built. We had other pictures, but we can look at the elevations too.
I think the other picture is in the very beginning of the this middle. Those, again,
Unprepared.
we tried to cover all of our bases. We did the sun study that was requested, which was included. There are, like I said, I think it was 250 meg of files. So those are just some aerials that we kind of showed what has been done previously.
So that's, yeah, so, and that's that fourplex building that we added.
Mhm.
And so those are the way those stalls are separated by grass, exactly what we were talking about.
So some of these larger corner pieces of lawn and tree and landscaping, that's great if you can add more.
That's definitely the intent.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
that's, you know, absent a full landscaping architectural design, that is what we're intending.
Do you want to talk about the architecture now?
That'd be great.
Any other comments?
Go back to that previous site. Sorry. Yeah.
No, sure.
The only thing I had was just maybe take a closer look at some of this pedestrian connectivity. I mean, I see what you're trying to do in a lot of ways, but like if you look in the top left of the site, there's a strip of sidewalk behind a bay of parking that goes nowhere. In the top left,
Yeah.
it's just a strip of parking that doesn't go anywhere. And then if you go down to the bottom center of the site,
They will
there's
connect, just like on the other side that I noticed we didn't.
Sorry.
no, you're good. So to the left, Becca, that path is just spitting you out right into like the center line of that access aisle. It just kind of feels a little, it feels like there could be a little bit more thought and intentionality put into some of the
It
pedestrian
should tie
connections.
into the southern side where that last driveway is. Just because if, neighbors that live on that side would cross over and then they can get to the trail system.
Yeah. Is that going to be gravel? Is that what that hatch is demonstrating?
Haven't fully pushed that one out, plantation mix or something.
We figured we'd ask you guys too, what else you've seen that you'd like. I mean, we've done different versions of that in other communities where we've done interconnectivity. Obviously, climate permitting, but we figured that would be something that we talk about. Chris had laid this out with the phrase you just used as the material on this particular choice, but I'll open to talk about it.
If it's over 2%, the plantation mix usually erodes away. So it probably need to be and it looks like, I think you slope from front to back, if I recall. So it probably needs to be a permanent surface. Like concrete or tabby or rock salt, finished concrete, that sort of thing.
These are all private
Not even
roads,
with
right?
Yeah,
steel
Yeah.
edging. No.
Yeah. It becomes a maintenance nightmare for you all.
Appreciate you saying this on that.
Do you,
Sure.
the duplexes are on the side, right?
Yes.
And is that like, is it a single level flat on the lower level? No stairs?
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. So two duplex, and then the interior units are all single stories. And then
Okay.
exterior.
Are you guys gonna have to do fair housing standards? Are you adhering to that
Yes, we're going to have to accommodate handicap.
on the site too, though? Not
Site,
not just the building.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
James McDonough, architect, by the way.
Okay.
But yeah, if there's any other side questions, happy to answer them. Otherwise, great to get into architectural stuff. Happy to do so.
I'm good.
All right, unfortunately, I have to leave,
Okay.
but we got through the site stuff, so I'll leave it to Peter to run the meeting and it'll be good discussion, so.
We'll take that as a yes on the architectural.
No.
Sorry, couldn't be avoided, but thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Where would y'all like me to start with the
No, you
architecture?
don't have to anymore.
The elevations.
Yeah, I'd go with the elevations.
Okay.
I guess the
Probably
colored
go
one.
for the
Yeah,
co-
Oh, the-
colored renderings would probably read better.
Here.
All right. So after your comments, at the last meeting, we kind of dived into the detailing of the low country architecture, trying to really look at the details that made the difference of that style. So, as indicated, in the response to, your comments from last month, we did the vertical rails. What we tried to do in the center portion of this building right here, which has balconies, the staircase, and the entryways to each unit. If you looked at some of the residential housing that's around, there's a lot of homes, two-story homes that have this walkway across the front, 2 stories, 2-story porches. So, you know, it's a 3-story building. It's hard to, I guess, call it low country architecture unless you really get those details to read. That center portion to me reads of that. It reads of that residential quality, the porches across the front. Going to the additional comments, we added the garage doors. They were more of a cottage style glass in it. We've got architectural roof shingles. We've got shutters. We've got hardy plank horizontal siding. We're probably going to go with a clad window. And as you can see here, we've added the parking spaces in front, and we're definitely going to landscape in between each one of these things. Then if you go to the rear elevation that's facing the highway, there's a rendering of that, I believe. So. That's the one, I think, yeah, that's it. So this is facing the highway, and the comments were basically to try to bring the quality of the elevation up, so it kind of read like a front. So I think we've accomplished that. Again, to the center portion, we put the balconies in, we've got all the rails, we're gonna try to make those verticals appear to be columns, so that we have a nice colonnade in the porch. We added flower boxes to some of the upper windows, the parts that you're gonna see. Shutters and dormers. The dormers are real. They cut into the units and they add light to, you know, traditional skylights, basically. Let's see, where else can I tell you? We added, do we have a 16, we have a 14 plex, I believe, larger building. Maybe we can go to those frontage of it. Yeah. That's still an 8. So, well, while you're here, we did 4 color variations. We discussed that maybe we don't want the whole subdivision to look like it's, you know, just monolithic. So we threw in 4 different color palettes, and we like to mix them throughout the project. So if we go to this, we've got 2 more after this, I believe, different colors. Different color palette. And there's another.
Maybe one at the top.
Back on the top, yeah.
Yeah.
Darker one. So we feel that if we change the color palettes throughout the project, you're not going to have that initial, wow, this looks like a cookie cutter kind of project. Plus the fact that the buildings are 8 plexes, 14s, and there's a 4 in there. I think you're going to get some diversity that you're looking for. And it's still playing to low country architecture. If we could find the larger building, not sure what number it is.
Color renderings, larger building, or we have elevation.
Yeah, the elevations are fine. Okay. This is the clubhouse, by the way. So the clubhouse, we did the same thing. We matched the rails, the detailing, the dormers, the siding, shutters, colonnade, and the brick. That's something else I didn't add on the color renderings is around the garages, we added brick to sort of round it a little bit and break up the materials. This. Correct, that's the 4. This is an 8. There you go. All right, so that's the front of the 14. Again, we've got two sections with that large balcony feeling. Then as we get down to the ends, that's a wraparound porch that goes to the side with the metal roof. We've got balconies on every front at every entry elevation and along the back of the building also. We have balconies. And we've treated them the same. We're going to make those look like columns and balustrades.
There also is a picture of the clubhouse.
Yeah, I think we have.
Just to point it out to, the clubhouse element, I believe a picture of one that we built, we use a similar footprint. And
Yeah, I think that's
similar
the very
element.
beginning as well, top of the document.
Top of the dock.
Yes,
There you go.
thank you.
So low profile, we try to get that entryway to be a little more pedestrian. It's got the dormers cut in, and it's got all the typical amenities on the inside. There's floor plans if you care to see. We have floor plans there of all the buildings if you care to see.
Just so I don't forget mentioning this, on this illustration, you're showing a shed roof on the dormer, but on the drawing elevation, you're showing a gable roof.
Yeah.
I assume it's
So-
the gable roof.
Yeah, this is a picture of a previous
Right,
clubhouse that
okay.
we've done, but yes, they will be matching details.
And then any other comments
Not at this point.
before?
Go ahead.
Okay. I thought I saw some brick on the elevation, on the drawing elevation, but
You
I
did.
didn't see any on the renderings.
Same color as the siding, so you might have missed it. If we go back to one, you can take a look. They're at the
Okay.
garage elements.
So you are incorporating two materials,
Oh, yes.
some brick. Can you talk,
Yeah, we've got the metal roof, architectural roof shingles, horizontal.
can you go to a rendering and show me where the brick is?
Yes. Any one of those. I don't know if you're able to see that because of the color. but it's right there.
And so why would you blend it in, opposed to just emphasize it?
Well, it's a thought. We would
Okay,
entertain
that's a thought.
that. I see there's a lot of red brick around and
And then, just
matching or.
I like it, man.
just elaborate on some authentic low country architecture,
Mhm.
those half shutters. And they wouldn't cover the entire window. So either go with a full shutter. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's
Okay,
gonna end up being a 3-foot wide shutter.
either go with a full shutter or eliminate the shutter and just go with a very nice fat trim around the windows. I would also say on the roof gables, architectural brackets or rafter tails, that immediately would indicate low country architecture, and that's not a very expensive detail to add.
Okay.
Even a little to break up this, I think it's maybe more pronounced on some higher buildings. You can put a simple, small roof structure above the garage to break up the horizontal of the white. Again, considerations. I'd like you just to review this. I'm not saying that
No,
you have to
understand,
do it,
totally. Appreciate the comments.
but I don't know, that sort of gets more into the authentic low country. Perhaps again, on the gables, some more shutters, some oculuses, something. You showed two at the very top of the two-story balconies.
Mhm.
But on the smaller ones, you don't show anything. And it depends on the mass of maybe the bracket takes up the whole thing once you introduce brackets.
Mhm.
And then you don't need anything. But so again, it's another option to break up that gable elevation.
Further detail it.
I like the little clear story above your fixed 2x2 windows. That's a nice detail.
Thanks.
And then when you come back, I'd like to see some streetscape renderings of multiple buildings in one image so that we can, and you should be able to determine by the next time what building is white, what building is gray, what building is beige, and present that to us so that we can see, the comprehensive perspective of what this development is really going to look like.
Understood.
During, I'm sorry.
I just want to ask, if, when we were looking at the amenities side, when you're looking at it to the right, there's something odd sitting on the roof. Is that actually something on the roof or is it something behind? Look at it.
It's on the clubhouse.
Oh, I think that's a building to the rear of the site.
It has nothing to do with that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he told me it probably was, but I wanted to make sure that it wasn't sitting on that roof.
There any, just out of curiosity, because we spent some time with colors, and, we weren't sure if you guys felt, how you guys felt about these particular color schemes, if you like them.
Fine.
Obviously, we felt that we could, make the community with them, but if there are any color tweaks you think might be helpful, just so that when you're coming back to it next time, we're not, showing something you don't want to see necessarily in color. Again, we like the, open interpretation on that.
I like them standalone personally, when you look at each one individually, but I really agree with Peter in that having some type of rendering with multiple buildings showing these different color palettes would really help nail down what you guys want to do.
And we'll do a photometric plan that shows that throughout. We just didn't want to start plotting them if the colors were going to change.
Right,
That totally makes sense.
right.
Dumpster enclosure.
Yeah, so, we're gonna have, probably one near the clubhouse. And then there's also a picture in there of how we've done this at other sites. So I guess it's closer to the beginning. We've done this in, similar locations where we felt valet trash was more desirable. So we will have a few throughout the site for convenience, but we've done this vinyl fence. Fenced in.
Okay.
So to the extent that that's representative, we'll lay that out throughout the site, show you where that makes sense. That's more in line with what we want to see.
It's good.
Thank you.
Is that on the rear?
I'd also
The front? Okay.
like to
Very
see a view
screened.
down in between the buildings where you have your pathway, if you can go back to the plan.
Oh, like in that courtyard behind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think he knows where.
Yeah,
I'm-
with that fourplex, the four.
Exactly.
Happy to do that.
And then also get realistic on your renderings, show us the areas for the condenser units.
Yeah.
Because
So that is on here. If we zoom into the building, we can show you. But we did look at that, to the rear of the buildings, they're laid out there, in that scale.
They're at scale, yeah. So if you look at the very back,
Good.
you'll see the little pads for each of the HVAC units.
Okay.
Yeah, especially down that spine between the buildings.
And I was gonna say something else.
Mailboxes.
Yeah, so we looked at that. We definitely have some areas throughout the site where we do consolidated mailboxes up in the front by the clubhouse, in the middle of those courtyard areas off to the side. We'll indicate those. We had a question out to the Postmaster General on, the ability to maybe, just because the way it's laid out, maybe to do individual mailboxes, but, they usually ask for consolidated ones for simplicity's sake. In that clubhouse amenity too, this comes up a lot in other planning meetings. We have an area dedicated to like an Exxon offering. That's become very common now. That's part of the amenity in the clubhouse, which we felt was good because, anytime those package deliveries come in, they're not sitting in front of the site, they're coming into that side parking lot, they're parking in the clubhouse, they're delivering and then they're leaving.
Does your development have a name, and are you thinking of some kind of monument at the Berlin Myers entrance? And if you are, please show that at the next presentation.
So we have it's kind of turned into a little bit of a, internal competition. We have some ideas, floating around for names at the office. And we have an amenity, waterfall feature name fountain that we've done at other sites that we're gonna show you. But we were gonna pick a name and then show that at final, figure that out, would be something that we could have a condition on, because we're planning on having the water sign anyway.
I thought the parkway was limited access.
Sorry?
I thought the parkway was limited access.
Parkway's limited access.
Limited access. How do you get a drive cut into the parkway? If it's a parkway, you don't get a drive cut into it.
Yeah, so, I mean, Chris might be close to this, but.
So well, how are you working that?
So we actually reached out to the DOT under both scenarios. The tree that we talked about making the roundabout, I submitted that to them as well as this updated one, just to confirm, and we've been basically told that either one still meets the requirements for the site. So it's all about the adjacent Limehouse connection and or the across the street or the one that's further down.
I'm just not, I mean, the parkway has got a divided median. You got 2 lanes going in one direction, 2 lanes going another. How do you get across that divided median?
There's again.
Left in, right
to the
out.
side lane, there's what would have to happen is,
Yeah.
as a part of those improvements, it's you can see it there. That's where the turning movements would take place. And the text from Future Burlington Myers Parkway is over the top of it. You can see a little.
Perforated lane.
So you work that out.
Yeah, we have proof. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a good question. Yes, sir.
And then I have one last question on the daycare. Will you have the architecture worked out by the next submittal? Or have you considered separating that from the submittal so it doesn't get tied in and, you know, we have to give.
It's being separated
Okay.
at the time being. The other question was because they're still working on the entry monumentation. We asked staff if that could be a separate submittal, just in case we weren't ready in time. And we were told that this is possible to do a separate submittal just for the monumentation.
Okay.
And Chris, just to, I guess circle back to comments, from Chris's side, that we had on that in terms of the daycare. You know, we're working on the architect to come down for the next meeting, preliminary, hearing on that. They have several elements that we'll look to send to you guys, so you guys can have input. Wholesale, that's, you know, the daycare is still, confident in staying in that footprint. Obviously, the designs that we gotta work out and hopefully maybe that tweaks a little bit, but that's generally what we're looking at, so it shouldn't really affect the rest of the site. You know, tonight we were hoping to, I really enjoyed this conversation. You know, in interest to move this forward and stay on our timeline, we were looking for preliminary approval from you all. And to be able to move forward on it.
Let's move on.
Yep. Any other questions from you guys?
I think that's, I have enough.
Okay. Do I hear a motion for?
Motion, preliminary approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Come back, check.
Okay, so moving along. There we go. All right, so we are now at 105 Midland Parkway. This is a preliminary review. Excuse me, for the comeback shack at 105. Again, for these TRC comments regarding MS4 permitting and SCDOT, the applicant will need to advise if there's been any updates on that. Let's see. And same thing with the tree care plan, the applicant will need to advise if there's any updates on that. It does appear that the site plan portion of this request, as far as evaluating the tree location and species, but perhaps not grading of the health of the trees, has been provided. So staff would just suggest that Elliot meet with us, with the arborist and myself, to go over that further, to discuss any modifications before coming back for final. Again, sort of same thing in my next comment here regarding landscape requirements. At the, let's see, at the last meeting, y'all talked a lot about the architecture and wanting some low country elements. The architecture has been revised and is in the submittal, and I'll let them go over any of that. And so they can advise what has been updated or changed. And Elliot, you just tell me where you want me to start.
Let's just start with the existing street pictures. That'll be a good place to start, and I'll try to be brief. I need to get home because
bedtime's coming and they're last on the agenda. So we'll do what we can. Um,
I actually think we're familiar with the site.
My name is Elliot Locklear, Locklear Consulting. This is the formerly a car wash site and the well, we shall have technology to put different things on different screens. This set of pictures is there's an existing driveway coming from Midland Parkway up into the public shopping center. And so this is, I actually tried really hard to get them in an order of that I took them to, so you can kind of walk down the sidewalk there. But the picture software just wasn't cooperating. This is the top two pictures here are, they're really just kind of looking in both directions at about the middle of the property. This is an existing driveway that was for the car wash. The top left picture is looking back towards the Publix driveway and toward Dorchester Road. And the right side driveway is looking down toward the hospital site or the new garage site, as was presented earlier. This driveway is going away and our new driveway is going down closer to a second, well, yeah, to the far end of the site. We have gotten the preliminary approval from DOT for that location. There's nothing across the street to align with or to interfere with lanes and whatnot. So this particular drawing is the site layout, and the purpose of this is with planning's requirement to show the trees that would be removed and trees that would remain. We're essentially looking at the perimeter of the site on the right-hand side as to anything that's remaining, and that is the residential side. One of the comments from last time was to place a fence along that side to filter the headlights that be shining in the backyards. This is a open space of the PUD next door with duplexes and triplexes and whatnot. And it gets wider. It's a triangular shape area there. So just the far parking spaces that really back up to a lot there. And then we've got a little more room, but we're doing the fence along there. We do have a photo pretty far down, Becca. Actually, it's in that narrative. I'm sorry. Go back up to the end of the narrative. That is a picture of the type of fence. Not that much gap between the boards, but the horizontal boards rather than a vertical privacy fence type look. So that would be that right-hand side, and then the fence around the dumpster enclosure would be either or. We can match the building or we can match that fence around the dumpster enclosure. All the parking on site is pervious brick pavers. And I think there was a comment last time about the width in the front and turning I'm trying to remember, Peter, what your comment was on the side. On the left side, we had a drive that looked like nothing was protecting the building. That's a kind of a employee walking area to pass out bags of food. Okay, so we want to avoid a curb, so we're just going to paint caution lines on that to to designate that to keep the cars away from the building there. At the end, might bring a little curb out there at the very end, just to kind of keep the cars honest and off of the walkway for the employees. On the opposite side of the building, we really don't think we need that because you've got a curb line for cars entering into the drive-through that keeps them in line, and then they're shooting for the canopy. But that's the same kind of thing, an area there for the employees walking to take orders and whatnot. This is not exactly a Chick-fil-A, but drive-throughs have become so much more. Kids in the parking lot taking orders and filling orders just everywhere you go. So this is kind of where we are. Stormwater drainage is subsurface and a lot of pervious area in the parking spaces. We're working that out with the supplier now for the pavers. We do have the ADA accessibility out to the public sidewalk as well as to the ADA spaces. Will then put the curbs back for the additional spaces to where we're not pooling any water anywhere. That's kind of the site, and I don't have an architect with me today. I think he's doing us all a favor by not bringing the flu with him. So that's as far as we can go. You can look at the architecture. I can answer maybe some general questions to take back, but I really can't address the architecture. So maybe we can get through the site plan portion, and if there's anything that you just want to send back to the architect, might be a little bit I can answer, but not anything when Bill brings up the rafter tails, I'm out of it. So.
Full vents in it.
Okay.
You just got blank gables. I put some vents in it.
I would also suggest some heavier trim around the windows. Right, wider.
Okay. Thank you for interpreting that for me, Candy.
And I don't know if there's a landscape plan, but is there like foundation landscaping around this building?
No.
Or is it all bare?
This is actually didn't get removed. If you scroll a little bit further down, there is a landscape area there. What we've done to kind of protect that corner is we're looking at rather than, well, it could be landscaping. We're talking about some boxes along there to put some plants in. The other option was a fence type of a look.
I think it needs something.
I think that would be, we can keep color through most of the year and get some things that change out during the year. But the flower boxes basically is what we'd be looking at along that to kind of protect the seating, outdoor seating area there from the traffic.
That's a good idea to protect the outdoor seating.
All right.
Yes. The only thing is on your islands for the parking, you've got some grass of some sort, and you're gonna have to put trees in there, so.
Well, my understanding with the smaller parking lot like this, the interior trees are not required. We do have the trees around the perimeter. And what we've got there that's complicating that on planting trees is for the stormwater, that's essentially a bioswale stormwater holding in there, and we don't want, we cannot put trees.
Mitigate it.
So that was why in my comments, I suggested that Elliot, myself, and our natural resource and planner and arborist meet just to discuss feasibility because this is an existing site. And already did technically go through DRB for approval of, and got through the parking lot part of it, but not the rest, then the project stopped. So it's a different one that we're dealing with than just, a vacant site. So before Elliot comes back with the project for final approval, we'll set up a time to meet and talk that through. That way you guys have a bit more information and better understanding of if there's any variances of sort that you need to grant for the
I mean,
landscaping.
what's drawn looks good. It's just not quite what we're used to doing, so.
Yeah, the drought tolerant grasses, which I've never put in anything. I'm not a fan. But that's what's going to thrive here. It's not going to take shrubberies and trees. when we've
We
got-
also don't want to put trees in existing islands that aren't going to survive, so it's probably going to take a closer look at what's there to make sure it
Go into
actually
the
survives.
Publix parking lot and look at the cypress knees that were planted coming up in the asphalt.
Oh, boy.
So these are maybe some things that should be thought through a little further down the road. But we do have the existing landscaping for that Publix entrance that we're not touching. It's heavily landscaped there, and then we're putting the end island trees around that perimeter. And then in this area on the right-hand side of the site, plan right, we've got landscaping in there with the fence background and shrubs that are evergreen mostly so that when they get up, they'll block the headlight as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments from the board? Is there a motion for approval of preliminary design for this?
I'll make a motion for approval of preliminary.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, folks, we're gonna move right along to 424 Old Trolley Road. This project last came before you in April of 2024. They are requesting final approval. As far as these TRC comments, again, the applicant will need to address any updates on those. I did print y'all the updated landscaping plan. And I'll just touch on that briefly and then I'll let the applicant go over all of that. So just to go over the rest of my comments before we get to that. The applicant has flipped the rear building where there were concerns of porches overlooking the neighborhood beyond the property. They have created an outdoor gathering space for the residences and the detention has been moved underground. A dumpster enclosure has been added and the parking has been reconfigured. The applicant has worked with the town arborist to review the proposed plan at a staff level. There are several grand trees on site and they worked together to mitigate and move things around to lessen the encroachment on those trees. So plantation mix trail has been moved to the left side of the grill area that you'll see on that revised site plan, away from 2 grand trees, and there will be an additional 30.5 inches of canopy trees totaling in 38.5 for on-site mitigation. A photometric plan is typically required prior to final DRB approval. If the board feels comfortable granting final approval without that, staff would suggest that they condition the photometric is submitted before site disturbance. And I believe that is it. So y'all just let me know where you would like me to start.
Thanks, Becca. Good evening. My name is Eric Ladson with Earthsource Engineering. I'm joined by Lossie Knight and Lee Rodriguez from LFK Architects. Before we get rolling, Becca, what were the printouts that you provided for them? Thank you.
Just these 2 pages,
Just
because
these.
everything else I believe stayed the same.
That's correct. Yes. Do they,
I mean, they have.
they all
them.
have
Yeah,
copies?
they all
Okay.
have them. It won't, I could pull it up there, but it's gonna be the previous one that's slightly different. So I'll pull it up, but, they have that.
That's
So-
good. Yeah, thank you.
That's fine. So as Becca had mentioned, we did come about April of last year, seeking final approval back then. We were given preliminary with a few conditions. Back then, we were asking for a number of things. By default, there was a 15-foot buffer between this residential property and the one that's currently noted as owned by Amy and Sean Russell. We had requested at that time a reduction in width of that buffer from 15 to 10, but the required number of plantings remained the same. In addition to that, we were required additional plantings for screening based off of protection of visibility between the two properties. Lossie and Lee did make a few changes to the building as well to eliminate that visibility, but I'll let them get into that. Few of the other changes, her comments last year was providing trash or rollout bin access. So that was provided at the front of the property. It was also a question was raised for shared parking. Currently on site, there is the required number of parkings are being met. I think we're required 11. We're showing 13 on site. 4 of those, I think, are garage spaces actually in the unit. In addition to that, there are existing spaces at the existing commercial area to the right that the owner plans to allow the residential use to use. The options for that was to either have a shared parking agreement or abandon the property line altogether. And the owner has decided to abandon the property line so that the residential units will have access to the leftover commercial spaces next door. That is the overall changes to the site plan. Unless there's any questions at this time. Oh, actually, I do want to add, yes, the digital color rendering that you see on the screen was a little bit older before we had comments from the tree protection staff. There was a plantation mixed trail running to the right of the grill area previously. It was kind of threading the needle between the grill area and some grand trees there. One of the comments from tree protection staff, Justin Carpenter, was to actually flip that trail to the left side of the grill area to get away from those grand trees. And so the printout you have in front of you shows that trail being swapped to the left side. I will point, I did briefly mention the additional screening plantings that were required. On the printout, it shows up as a darker green, but there's 4 loblolly bays, which are evergreen, that are being added to reduce visibility between the two properties. Those are being planted in addition to the existing grand oaks and the existing grand pines that are to remain in that buffer. Unless there's any questions at the time, I'll let Lossie mention all the changes that have occurred for the building.
Can I assume the fire department approved this dead end road in front of that building?
Yeah, so I think it's a C201. It would have been after C200. So 2 pages down. I think the next one. So we were only required to show that there was access through the one-way drive and turning left towards the commercial property. And we were given a preliminary approval from them on that. They didn't have a problem with the dead end drive at the end.
Okay.
Give you some space. Let's see.
What's the deal with the one parking space that's a little short?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So,
Step back, I guess,
Something's there.
buffer.
yeah, so we didn't want to encroach into that buffer. So the 3 spaces above it are standard 9 by 19 spaces, but that last one is compact space,
For a little mini.
a little mini space. That's right.
Gotcha. All right, I'll address some of the architectural comments from last time. Becca, if we can start on, I think it's slide maybe 201, somewhere around there. And guys, we've got like a 60-page submittal, but I'll try to just hit the highlights and then be available for any questions. So I just want to remind everybody that I know it's been a little while. We started working on this mixed-use development back in 2018. And so we've done the first 3 buildings along Trolley at 460, 440, and 428. And then these 2 buildings on the right-hand side that you can see labeled A and B that fall under 424 really cap off or finish out this mixed-use development. So the language of the architecture is consistent with some of the previous buildings that we've done on site to kind of give it all one cohesive feel. So if we can go to, let's see, next slide, 203. Yep. So that's perfect there. So that gives you a good close-up bird's eyes at our buildings A and B. You probably remember the front building A is an apartment building. It's 2 stories. It's got 3 units on each floor. It's got a little outdoor plaza fronting Trolley Road. And then in the back, we've got the townhome building B, and it is 5 units, and 4 of the units have park below. Next slide, please. This just shows you some of the interconnectivity next to the commercial building. If we can go to 219, please, Becca. Yeah, there you go. Oh, I'm sorry. Perfect. Yep. So one of the comments that we had on building A, there were very few, but building A last time was perhaps consider some sort of privacy for the units that fronted or adjacent to some of the commercial buildings just beside us. And so we've added some Bahama shutters at more of the private rooms. And so essentially this facade in this building hasn't really changed much since then. Of course, we've got the materials palette here that better shows some of the materials, but I think that was a primary comment from our preliminary presentation. Building B in the back, we had more comments. And so we can, let's see, let's go ahead and jump to 224, please. Yep. Oh, I tell you what, if we can go back one slide, there you go, perfect. So on building B, the top slide represents the previous and the bottom slide represents the proposed. And so we've had a chance to work with Dominion Energy on how this building fits into the site. So just behind that, the building you see in that picture along the north, which is the side elevation that fronts life storage, we've got this 20-foot electrical easement through there. And so we have some real close coordination with Dominion, and we found out that it was just a little too tight. So we ended up shrinking the building by about 4 feet from left to right, give us a little more wiggle room on site, also help the parking. And then probably the bigger concern was the scale of the building on the left side of this drawing as it gets next to Quail Arbor and that residential unit, that's residential parcel that's behind us. And so we have really gone back and redesigned the floor plans to where the end unit on the far left, it goes from a 3-story down to a 2-story. We've also got a lower flat roof to kind of scale it down. The overall roof line itself for the entire building has been dropped by 3'6". And then on the top image, you can see we used to have porches that were looking out over kind of a central park. And if you look past that, you'd actually see towards the residence. So we've decided to take those porches off that facade and put them on the other north facade so they weren't looking at the residences beyond. And let's see if we can go to another slide that better shows that. Let's see, 228, if we can. Yeah, that's perfect right there. Yep. So this is that electrical easement, and you can see those porches on the second level, sort of looking out on that green space. And then on the ground level, we also had the opportunity to add some patio spaces to kind of better utilize that. And then as you see on the far right-hand side, that's the kind of the common amenity with the trellises and the grilling area. And so that shifting over behind our building kind of helps to link it to all this green space, kind of unifies it a little bit better. And so those were the primary changes. If there's any other questions, happy to go into as much detail as we might need to. So the roof is a Galvalume. And if we look at the streetscape pictures, I don't think you're really going to see it, but we have a little sample. Scales down a little bit.
Can we go back to the opposite elevation of this building, Becca? So what are these rooms that are now overlooking the parking lot?
Overlooking the parking lot, yeah.
Are they the
Those
bedrooms?
those are bedrooms. Yeah, more private uses.
And are those like floor to ceiling windows? How tall are those windows, especially at the corner?
So we have a little bay that projects out. So if you see that horizontal, that white band that's about a foot, and then the windows step up roughly 24 inches from there. So you do have a little bit of a knee wall. So they're really not floor to ceiling. They just look bigger, I think, because they're framed by that bay.
And what's your low country detailing on this elevation? What do you attribute? What technique?
Well, we've got lap siding, we've got some nice overhangs, we have some simulated wood, but really, it might.
Two windows.
Yeah, we've got the appearance of double hung windows, that type of thing. But all this should be in character also with the front buildings. I think there might be some views where you can see all of them together earlier in the presentation.
Carriage style variety.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got stucco and then our wood trellis-like elements, wood handrail on the caps of the balconies. And those trellis elements also occur on the neighboring building to the left. And then we've got brick as our base.
Looks like brick on the ground floor.
On the ground floor, that's right, yeah.
What's the brick look like? Looks like a white brick.
Yeah, where's our brick?
No, that's okay.
It's a Magnolia Bay. So I think in the front of the presentation we have a picture of it. We'll grab that for you. Yeah, let's go. So it should be right, and maybe one or two slides up. Yeah, right there. Let's see, one more slide up, I think. Right there. Yep. So this was the existing center right next to us that we renovated, and you can see the Magnolia Bay there. So it's not really white. It's got some caramel and some warmer colors in it.
I think
it
it
looks good.
Yeah, I agree with Bill. Looks good. Any other comments from the board? Candy?
I don't think so. I'm a little confused about, so you changed the roof on the back building, but you still have that same original look on the front building, correct?
Yeah. So the front hasn't changed. In the back building, it was just a little tight on site next to that.
I understand why you did it, and it looks
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I guess the materials match and it's fine. I just caught that because we're looking at these renderings and I'm still.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. The one, if we go back, if we go up to 221 right there, that might give you a good sense of how these buildings kind of happen in series from the street. So that 3-story building is a little bit further back than the front one.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a motion for,
Motion final approval.
is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank
Well-
you.
Thank you.
DUN, us.
All right, so we're moving on to 1430 Central Avenue. Much smaller in scale project. This is just this is just the addition of a storage shed for an existing restaurant property.
3 o'clock.
The ordinance requires any new construction on commercial property to receive DRB approval. The project was not required to go to TRC as the location for the storage building is already paved. Because this building is only code compliant to be utilized for storage, staff would recommend that if the DRB feels comfortable granting final approval, that the approval is conditioned to only be used for storage and not for any bar, restaurant, service, or patron use. Here is the site. Just to note, we're looking at just the front part of this site. And I will hand it over to Sean to talk to you about it.
My name is Sean Herman. Represent my wife and daughter. They're the owners. They couldn't be here today, so I'm here representing them. Basically, we're just trying to get a storage shed. We have very little storage in the restaurant for anything really at all, and we're trying to do more outdoor events, so we need a place to keep our stuff for our events close by, so that the girls don't have to be trying to. The poor girls are boys' bathroom with stuff with all kinds of things right now. And you can see in the previous pictures, there was a building there that burned down. So that's how we have the existing concrete. So that's, right now, that's where the shed would be going. I'm working with Rebecca now. We're gonna try to put a little 4-foot fence around there. We're gonna put planters around the shed, eventually put AstroTurf around it to soften it, give it some texture, some colors, and put some plant life around it to really enhance it. The flowers will go in right away. My wife's big on, I don't know what they're called, but the little window unit, or the little plants, the little flower boxes. Is that all they're called? Simple. I'm not a gardener. But she wants to put flower boxes on the windows, put flowers around the building, to really just dress it up and make it look like it's an attractive part of the building.
And is the door on the side where the restaurant is?
The door will be facing where the picnic tables are. Yes, going up where the picnic tables are facing.
And what is the exterior material?
So it'll be the same as
As the house?
The house is now, yes, sir.
Except you went vertical versus horizontal. Is there a reason?
I think part of the building is horizontal and some of it's vertical, if I remember right. I'll have to double. Do you have any pictures to?
Does it cover the whole concrete pad?
No, it doesn't. That's what we're gonna put with the turf over the concrete to give it some, to make it nice, give it the greenery.
Vertical.
Pretty much the only reason why we went vertical is that's just the way the shed is
It is a bad.
prefab.
So when you say you're gonna put turf on the concrete.
Yeah. It's like AstroTurf, it's fake grass. It's fake grass. Yeah.
And that's more expensive than horizontal.
I've used it at a couple other buildings or another restaurant that we had, and it's actually really amazing how well it holds up and works. But like I said, on those front windows, we're gonna put planters on those. And put flower pots on the corners of the building, and then the shed, the concrete ends where the shed's at, so then we'll put bushes or some kind of shrubbery on each end of it to dress it up.
I would recommend you put shutters that are operable and fit the windows.
Okay, that's fine. It's not a problem.
Better dress it
You know, front and sides.
Okay.
And we were also talking, a vertical siding would require a batten. So that's more expensive than horizontal.
Okay.
So unless there's a real compelling reason you want to go vertical,
The shed's already, they just come prefab that way.
oh, this is a prefab?
Yeah, it's prefab.
So it's probably, what do you call that? Plywood with the grooves cut.
So it's not hardy board. There is the mention of hardy board.
I don't think it makes much difference. It's it's all gonna come pre-finished.
Yeah, it all comes pre-finished.
Okay. All right, any other questions from the board?
We could get picky and ask for a 2x12 water table board. But let's skip it. Let's go.
All right, is there a motion for approval, this final approval? Yep, motion for final approval. Jerry,
Yeah, I'll make a motion for final approval with conditions, right? Is that what we?
is there a second?
Candy, come on, Candy. Candy.
I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, we are moving on to what I assume all of y'all are here for. 808 North Cedar. This is a conceptual review, so this is the first time y'all are seeing this. It did go before TRC earlier in, I guess that was back in December. It doesn't seem that long ago. The TRC comments are there for your reference. I didn't have any further comments beyond these planning and zoning comments that you see here regarding maintaining existing trees, the parking location of the behind the building or on the side. And of course, Chris has addressed all of those comments, so I'll hand it over to him to give you more information about it.
Evening, everyone. I'm Chris Carpus with Carpus Design. I'm here representing the Episcopal Church of the Good Shepherd, as are all these good people. They're very patient. They've been patient with me, and I can see they're being patient. It is cold in here, yeah. They are very cold. Matt Halter is the civil engineer, and he's put together a few drawings, but he's recovering from knee surgery, and he's just staying home. He's too irritable. This is the existing site here, 808 Cedar Street, North Cedar. And there's an existing nail salon, small office there that fronts Cedar Street. It's actually off the street quite a bit. Right now, we're looking at the possibility of moving that to the back of the site. And all of the site access would be in the back, parking in the back, retainage in the back. The site naturally slopes to the back, so that all made sense. It keeps the parking off the front. We are proposing a little bit of street parking on Fred Street for handicap accessibility. The ramp is right there as well, right there. So when we're looking at the plan, we've looked at a couple of different options. Obviously, we're on the corner. The existing site, it has some pretty nice trees on it, and the existing building is set off from the street. And so rather than kind of upset that standard that's already been set for this site, but we looked at the option of having the church front Cedar Street, front Fred Street. We did not look at it fronting the neighbor, which is good, but we kind of came to the conclusion that a Greek cross or modified Greek cross shaped plan made a lot of sense for this site, since we will have, since we're really fronting three sides. We have an entrance on North Cedar, we have one off of Fred Street, one off the back, and then a small access on what would be the planned north side. If we could go to the next slide. That shows a little bit more of the parking. We're showing some paved areas in the back, as well as some gravel to kind of help our drainage. And then you can see all the parking that goes from the back to the entrance in the back, and then also to the side on Fred Street, and the smaller access on the north side. If we could go to the architectural plan, that might show us a little something else. There we go. Cedar Street is on the right. Fred Street is along the bottom of the plan. So the main part of the church body, the narthex and the nave, the chancel and the ambulatory all run from what would be kind of south to north. And then we've broken out the cross there. The rest of it, left side of that Greek cross, would be kind of a childcare wing. And then on the right side would be an office wing. And the narthex there at the bottom, that's really the main entrance for for folks who parked in the back. There's also obviously some pedestrian access off of Cedar Street as well. If we could go to the elevations, the elevations are all rather similar in that it's a Greek cross, and we wanted to make sure that we were really addressing the entrances. And so, and I'll talk a little bit more about the elevations when we get to the renderings. They're a little bit easier to understand, but the elevation there on Cedar Street, the top elevation, you can see the kind of bumped up areas there in the back. That's actually, anytime you see those in this plan, those are the windows along the sanctuary. Those kind of give us a clue where the actual sanctuary is in this Greek cross. And so you'll see that a little bit better. We can just go to the renderings because I kind of go around the building there. All right, this is North Cedar Street, and you can kind of see let's go to the next slide so we can kind of see a little better. There we go. We have board and batten siding. We try to kind of capture the sort of the quintessential low country church. It's board and batten siding. We've got Gothic windows to kind of call back to the Episcopal Church, and then the entrances, the entrance doors at the main entrances are large Gothic arch windows as well, doors and windows, brick steps, wood railings. We've got some wood trusses at the entrances for the porches, and those are kind of going to be mirrored, not exactly mirrored, but reflect on the structure on the inside of the building as well. Got some brackets. If we go to the next slide, we can show the corner. You can see that we're trying to save as many trees at the front of the property to kind of keep the characteristics that the site already has, and so we wanted to maintain that because it really is a beautiful site, and kind of it's not exactly contextual with the apartment complex across the street, and so we really wanted to capture the essence of what the building is really going to do here. I did have I had a sheet with photographs on it, but I am thinking that I didn't put it in there. You would have truly loved it. I'm sure. But anyway, this is the view from the corner. And then as we swing around to Fred Street, you can kind of see that entrance a little bit better. That's basically going to be the entrance on Fred Street and also Cedar Street. Look the same. You can see the wood trusses there. We've got some wood brackets, and those are all kind of tie in with some of the designs that the church has already had in place for some of the equipment that they have in the building. It's very the designs are a little bit more craftsman and have curved structural members and that. And so we're sort of trying to create a whole aesthetic exterior and interior here. You can see this is the view from the back. That's the entrance into the childcare wing. You can see the ramp on the right there. That'll all be connected to the parking. We've got some vented gabled ends. The center, above the center of the Greek cross, we have some windows that what we're trying to do is get some light down into the center of the cross. When we went to the Greek cross, we kind of took out some windows that we had along the sanctuary, and so by having the dormers, that we were trying to get a little bit more light in there, and it should be really actually rather striking to have that light coming down in the middle. But as you swing around to the other side, Becca, you can see that's the side that faces the neighbor. It's toned down quite a bit, but so with just a little overhang over the door that still captures the characteristics of the arches or the trusses over the entrances. There'll be foundation planting. This does not necessarily reflect exactly what we're going to do. We have landscape architect going to be working on that. And of course, Matt's going to continue to develop the plans, but architectural shingles, painted hardy, fascia trim. And we're looking into what we'll do with the windows as far as they're pretty big windows, but they'll, of course, the large Gothic windows aren't going to be storefront, but these may end up being, but they could be clad as well, but fixed. So with that, I'm open to any questions or comments. Happy to answer anything you might have.
I understand you're going to use a lot of the existing landscape, but do you have a particular landscape plan shown?
Not yet. Since we're just here for conceptual,
Okay.
it's really just more or less to.
But you do have trees you can say.
We have, yes, ma'am. Let's see. Let's see. On my architectural plan, I think we actually showed, and also on Matt's, if you go up a couple there, right in the middle. Yeah. Yeah, we've got them on all of them. It's about a 6,500 square foot building. So we are losing some trees in the middle, but we're trying to maintain some of those larger oaks along and pines along the street there. And then we'll supplement that. I'm not going to put that sidewalk where that pine tree is down there. I know it's sacred. But yeah, we'll definitely try to enhance what we've taken out. We've tried to not necessarily replace it in kind, but make sure that this stays with the kind of character that's there now. Thanks, Candy.
Looks great.
Given this is a church, what is your proposed window treatment?
The window treatment in the interior window treatment?
All the exterior windows, are they
Okay.
clear glass? Are they?
Yes, they're clear glass. We're not looking at stained glass or anything like that. So they'll be, we'll have to be impact rated and all that, but it'll be clear.
I just
Then
want to
at-
say, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't want to, you finish.
At the steeple, you said that is clear, everything is clear glass.
Yes. Yes.
And okay,
We'll
there's no light filtering glass or anything like
well,
that?
I mean, it'll be low E, and we may, in the end, as we look at I'll get into the interior and really look at the effects, because I know where you're headed there. But obviously we want to consider energy efficiency, and also we don't need to be like fading every piece of furniture
Right.
that's inside those
I
windows.
foresee a lot of sunlight and perhaps very blinding sunlight.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden you're installing curtains on the inside and the curtains are going to destroy personally the
The beauty.
Oh, well,
the appearance
certainly,
that you,
right. We certainly don't intend, and I don't think they'll let me do that, but
I don't think they will either.
horizontal blinds.
yeah, it's
from,
not Venetian or whatever. Yeah. No, we'll have to look at that. It may be that we end up with a slight tint or something
I
like that
think,
too.
again, low country, if you had some shutters
Sure.
on the inside,
That
that
would
was
yeah.
only half height.
Yes, I think that would be great. That would be consistent with
And
where
then
we're headed.
what is this house? What is
The
gonna,
house?
what is the house purpose?
The house purpose,
A little
the
brick in the
purpose
house,
of the
yeah.
house has been a nail salon. Right now it is the church office.
It's
And
gonna be a
it'll
church.
probably, if we can, if it's
Move it
if it's budget
effectively.
friendly and all that, we will use it for kind of an extension of the church office. But there is some accommodation made for offices inside the main body of the building. But
I
we're
just don't
looking
want
into
that house aesthetics to hold up the church.
Nobody does. Right.
So and you will have to start showing that and developing it
Sure.
in the formal presentation. And again, if you're not quite clear, just put a placeholder.
Okay. Yeah, it's in one of those pictures, lovely pictures I have back home at my computer.
veneer?
The house is all sided. It's all with painted,
Oh, that'll be easier to
Right.
move.
just painted
And then
siding.
another part of perhaps church architecture is the lighting,
Yes.
exterior lighting. I don't know if you have some thoughts, you don't have to talk about that, but just bring that in for the preliminary. And I think,
Absolutely.
in this, you did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Fantastic. I see the neo-Gothic and
Mhm.
as well as the low country. You know, I think you can really take it up and create the next St. Michael's of Somerville.
Hmm.
I think you can do
Thank you.
something very special
Peter.
there.
Your favorite thing
We
is
don't want
how
St.
does
Michael's
this
budget, however.
give us a picture of Somerville? Well, this immediately gave me a clear picture of Somerville and our community and what a wonderful place for people to go and worship. So,
Thanks, Candy.
don't you think?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So all you got to do is just show us how you can finish it and get it done.
That's the plan. So
I've got a question. So this is
Sure.
probably more for the civil, but have you started for their civil, but have you started engaging SCDOT on this parking that you've got along Fred Street?
not yet. Matt has certainly been part of an overall discussion of parking along the street in
Okay.
Somerville. And so I know that's gonna,
It's
I know that's
easily
a,
done.
there's it's a
Plant
big
zone.
subject. There's a lot of it going
Plant
on.
zone, you can do it all.
Oh, you can? Within there right away?
Really,
do it
to
all
be
without.
honest, there's sort of selective outrage about where that takes place and how it takes place. But
Yeah.
that'll be part of the discussions because we'll need to address them with the site access off Red Street too.
This is only a 50-foot right of way, so it's not part of the depth bowl track.
Right.
The main, which are 100-foot right of ways, and that's where it's done all over town, but you can still do it with a 50-foot right of way, you'll be safe. You can do it.
Well, it's literally across the street for the apartment complex as well. It
Oh, yeah.
runs the whole length there. Not that they make that look good, but we certainly would give it our best effort to make that work.
And then I would also encourage you to take a look at something special for the roof.
Okay.
You know, right now you're just calling out architectural shingles, which every house has.
Sure.
Perhaps there's a slate look asphalt shingle that gives you the variation.
Right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And, you know, since you're going neo-Gothic, I think there's an opportunity to, you know, really reproduce that and really make a statement
Right.
versus, you know, using the shingles off of a house in some of
Sure. Yeah, we'll definitely look at the options available for that and kind of go that way.
I also think a nice gas chandelier at the front porch,
That would be lovely.
just,
Definitely an
Well,
architect.
We're gonna,
just illuminating forever.
I think that all of us together will probably leave here and go do some fundraising based on that. But I think there's gas available, and so you know, I agree it would be lovely. It really, and I appreciate your comments, Candy, in that because we were trying to capture Somerville, so I appreciate that.
Okay, so
This
Go ahead.
was just conceptual.
conceptual,
Mhm.
Yep.
so
No
We'll
vote.
see you soon for a final.
I'm hoping so.
You can probably come in for a while.
I'll do that. I'll bring some materials and we'll just hope for the best. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
thank you.
Best of luck to you.
Take care.
It'll be wonderful.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Yeah,
Oh,
we did have the one item that we moved to the end. It doesn't appear that they are here. Just to give you a little bit of information on that before we decide to adjourn.
Why don't we do it and just go ahead and see if we can. include it?
Well, my only concern about that is that these are revisions to previously approved plans, and there are, as you can see in this keynote schedule, a lot of changes that I don't feel comfortable presenting for the architect.
This is all change.
Let them come and present.
Okay, I just wanted to make it clear that that's what was coming before you. While they have clouded everything, there's a lot within these notes.
Let's skip that.
And I can't explain the impetus behind those changes
Let's skip it.
for the architect, so
Okay.
we'll defer.
Come back next
Okay.
time.
Okay, well, with that,
We can adjourn.
yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.